Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cate-Cast, an entertainment podcast. This is episode 2. I'm surprised we got this far.
Yeah.
My name is Ezra, and I'm joined by
Ahmad.
And Sawyer.
To break down how this works, each of us has brought a topic from each of our 3 categories, movies, TV, and video games, to discuss with one another. Each topic has 10 minutes of discussion before we move on to the next, which is a little bit loosey-goosey depending on how far we go with one topic and how much we have to talk about with another. So, 5 minutes for my topic and 15 minutes for Ahmad's or something like that. And at the end, actually, we don't have anything at the end. We're getting rid of the bonus category, unfortunately.
Right.
Yep. We just thought it was adding too much meat to the bones, and I think I personally think it's worth cutting.
I think it's worth cutting because we're trying to also have less time.
And if we have a special guest, maybe the bonus category will be the special guest.
We'll just give them a special, hey, plug your new show.
Yeah, exactly.
48 or something.
Yeah. So anyways, we're actually going to start with games this week. I figured it would be a good idea to start rotating the categories that we start out with because we usually start to drag on more towards the end.
Yep.
So, we're going to start out with games. Sawyer's some interesting stuff with the Oculus and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So I am quite excited about this. They announced at Oculus Connect today, which is like their version of like an Apple keynote kind of thing.
Okay.
They announced that not only is there going to be new hardware coming, but it's going to be debuting with an official ILM X Lab Star Wars game. It's going to be in 3 parts, with part 1 coming out at launch of the hardware.
Okay.
The hardware is going to be called Oculus Quest. Launches in spring 2019 at a price point of $399. Now, what's interesting about this hardware is it is not tethered to a PC.
Oh, okay.
No PC. Is bundled with the touch controllers at launch. And I believe it's 4 cameras instead of 2 like Oculus.
So it's not tethered to a PC, so it's its own like rig?
From what I've seen, the photos haven't exactly been that extensive. From what we've seen, though, they're showing no cords. They've got people jumping around and twisting, like showing all these different kinds of games.
Ready Player One.
Yeah, it does remind me of Ready Player One.
Wow, that's interesting that we were talking about how far away we were from Ready Player One.
And the next week.
Yeah.
You mentioned last episode that there was the Clone Wars experience where you got to be a clone
Stormtrooper.
Yeah, Stormtrooper, and that was really interesting to hear. And now you have this going on, which is really cool to see.
And from what I've seen with this, switching gears to the Vader thing before I eventually come back to Oculus, the like big key launch title they announced with this was that ILM X Lab is working with Oculus to create Vader Immortal, a 3-part series for the launch of the Oculus Quest, which I'm going to have trouble keeping that.
I think I read that Immortal Vader Immortal, whatever it's called, is going to be canon to the Star Wars universe.
It is canon. Everything they've shown from it so far looks like it's going to somehow tie into that canon. We haven't seen much, but interesting enough, as I mentioned last week with the Star Wars VR experience, or I believe it was last week.
Yep, it was last week. Yep.
The when they showed in the footage for this new game, looks very similar to how the start of that VR experience goes.
Okay.
It's not 1-to-1, but spoilers for the VR experience in Disney World. You start off on Mustafar seeing Vader's castle in the distance, and you're stealing some kind of ancient like Jedi or Sith artifact.
Okay.
And Vader comes out there. It looks like a very ancient lightsaber at the very end when like a stormtrooper pulls it out. Before at the very end it's gone, and then a K2SO flies you away. So they were hinting at something in that, and I believe this full VR game is going to be the full story of what they teased in that.
Huh.
So I think it has something likely to do with whatever that Sith or Jedi artifact was at the end of that VR experience.
Now, you mentioned how there weren't any cords or anything attached to these, or wires or anything. It's not tethered to any wires. I'm wondering if that'll affect or maybe enhance the gameplay, make it better possibly, make it more enhancing. Yeah. So,
like I currently have the Oculus Rift back at home.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite games on that is called Robo Recall. That game, while it's amazing, it's basically a robot wave shooter.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with that game is it has robots coming up behind you, and you can't just whip around and shoot them because you're going to tear the cord out of your computer.
Yep.
So I think this being untethered will allow you what they're calling 6 degrees of freedom, which basically means you are not going to be able to be like how originally Oculus Rift, since it was not, what's it called, the room scale VR. You were only able to do stuff that was in 180 degrees. Now it's full 360.
Yeah.
And I believe that now with
cool.
this being untethered and cameras in each corner of your room, you're going to have the entire room mapped in VR.
Yeah, especially with a series like Star Wars, it seems so exciting just how much they can do with it.
Oh yeah.
I think starting out with Star Wars on this is a good call.
Yeah.
And they did say that it's with it not being connected to the PC anymore, they're planning on this being a much wider release.
Yeah.
Because the Oculus Rift, as much as they were trying to push that, and it said, well, it's only $400. That's on top of a $2,000 PC that can run it. So it's, I think this
that was
is
a pretty niche piece of hardware.
And I mean, that was also the biggest VR headset for a while, because the HTC Vive is even more expensive. I think this is going to definitely take the majority of the market share. And because currently, in terms of PC VR, it's like Oculus and then Vive, and then like all your Windows mixed reality.
Yeah.
I think this is going to completely knock Windows mixed reality out of the game. The only thing that could possibly get that back in the game is a Halo experience.
Yeah.
There's currently like a 10-minute thing that they have, but it's barely Halo. It's just essentially like a thing where you can swipe through pictures of characters. It's not really anything. But I think that with the Vive being like $800 just for the Vive Pro alone, without any cords or cameras, I think, controllers or cameras.
Yeah.
I think this Oculus Quest has the ability to make VR go mainstream.
Yep.
Yeah.
It has the ability to be
right.
like for VR what the Wii was for motion controls, to put it in houses of people who don't know what VR is or who would never normally play a game like that.
Yeah. It just has to. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we could cut this part out, but do we have the timer going?
I have.
All right then.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, I think it's gonna ride on games and having games at launch, because you can have a cool concept all you like, and I think this is a cool concept, but I'm certainly not gonna buy it unless it has cool games to go with it. So, I mean, this Star Wars game is a good start, but it's not gonna make me buy a VR headset or a VR rig, partly because I don't have the room for it, partly because I don't have the money for it, and also partly because I have little interest after the Star Wars game. So, like...
Interestingly enough, exactly for that, they are porting all of, or at least most of their major games from the Rift over to the Oculus Quest, so the people who couldn't afford a big PC rig for the Rift can play that. So, Robo Recall, the one I mentioned earlier, one of the best games on the Rift, that's going to get ported. They mentioned, I think, Dead and Buried is going to get ported, which is like an Old West, kind of like Oddworld style shooter. And I would not be surprised if the recently launched Marvel Powers United VR gets ported over as well.
Yeah, I think this is a good move, especially it being independent of PC or console, because I think like PlayStation has had its VR thing, and that has sort of worked for them. They're still pushing it, so like it's obviously not been unsuccessful.
It's not going the way of the Vita.
Yeah, it's not the Vita, but it's also I just don't. I look at like VR games and I don't care about any of them.
And I think that's what Oculus has going on against Vive.
Yeah.
Vive, as good as Valve is, they didn't launch with any massive game to sell that system.
Half-Life 3 was not an
Which,
HTC Vive.
as ironically, as unlikely as this sounds, if they had put a new Half-Life game in VR, that would have sold the Vive.
Yeah, it would have.
The problem that Vive has is, as much as I love
memes
Steam,
alone.
Oh yes. As much as I love Steam, the problem they have is there is no curation on Steam. So all these 99-cent crappy VR games that come out, there's no reason for...
There are 99-cent VR games?
Oh, there's everything on Steam. You can find a 99-cent version of anything on Steam.
Yeah. That's true.
But I think like where Oculus has it right is, despite there not being cross compatibility with headsets. I think that's the one thing that took Oculus down. Now I do like how they have Oculus funded studios through Facebook, where they can get original games on there, like Arcticle 1, Robo Recall, Lone Echo. These high quality experiences that are just the same length as regular AAA games on their service. That's what they need to do, is they just need to keep knocking out these great IPs so they can get something to put this console in the, or I guess it's not even really a console, in the hands of regular people.
And then eventually we will have a VR MMO that actually functions.
Oh, I think it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I think we're close. I think it's just netcode is kind of hard for VR games, so you have to worry about that. But once you figure that out, I think it's.
I would not be surprised if like Warcraft makes it like a VR at some point.
Oh, man. I might actually play VR Warcraft, which I don't play Warcraft right now, so that says something.
But like, think of how big the install base is on Warcraft.
Yeah.
If they said, "Hey, we've got Warcraft VR," that's almost billions of players that you've got immediately right there.
It's not billions, but it's
pretty close.
It's close to, yeah, man. I think about. I mean, we're gonna have to end on this, but I think about the install base for World of Warcraft, and I get a little scared.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, they're probably the only install base that nobody talks about that actually matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because like there are all sorts of bases like random anime games and like, the install base for Battlefield versus Call of Duty, and I'm just thinking about the install base for World of Warcraft, and I'm like, yeah, probably that is the only IP that could actually sell a console.
Don't forget, I think the only other thing that can come close to that, I think Mario and Zelda can possibly do that.
I think it's possible for them, but they have to like really push like the hardware.
To an extent, Zelda did really kind of self-switch.
I mean, Breath of the Wild helped. I think it was just like with the promise of so many games that the Switch was able to, and the sort of novelty of the hardware. I think it was able to just find a relatively large niche in gamers.
Yeah. Well, on our last bit of the Oculus, I would say, I'm definitely going to be picking this up. I don't know about launch day, but I'll definitely be picking this up as a successor to my Rift. Looking very much forward to how this Vader Immortal series ties into the growing canon that Disney's launched. Yeah. And I think this hardware, while I'm a little skeptical on how much power it can have, because I don't know, with there being no cords, which means inevitably you're going to have to charge it, and I don't know how much battery life this thing could have. And the fact that the controllers look great, by the way. The only things I'm really concerned about are battery life and how the tracking is going to be. Yeah. Because that VR experience I tried in Disney for Star Wars, the tracking was terrible. So I'm hoping the tracking of the controllers. Now I'm sure they did a lot of QA testing before this thing will even launch, but that's the only things I'm worried about is tracking and battery life, because those things could be a problem. But they already said the resolution is even higher than the Rift was. Yeah. So
it's coming out.
That's
spring.
Impressive.
Yeah, spring 2019 is what they said.
Yeah, spring. That's coming up really soon. It's sooner than I think. Yeah, we're already in October, almost October. Yeah. So
I think this will. I don't think it's going to have as long as as huge of a launch as like the Switch did in terms of that kind of size rollout. I think it'll probably have something like the Xbox One where it rolls out slowly over time.
Well, and the Xbox One did historic numbers.
It did, but it didn't hit every single household they thought. Yeah. I think that's going to be what's going to go on here. Is it's going to hit your early adopters and your fans of VR, and then it's going to slowly roll out to...
And a few dedicated Star Wars fans.
Oh, yeah. Star Wars is what's going to push it, and if they can get other big IPs on this, like a Robo Recall... Yeah. Like, think about, like, again, keep going back to the Switch, but Mario Kart 8 had already been out on the Wii U for a couple of years, and that game sold a lot of Nintendo Switches. You put out a game that's already been out on Rift for a couple of years and put it on the Quest and say, hey, you don't need a $2,000 PC to play it? Like, if I hadn't already bought my Rift and I didn't have this college laptop to play the games on it, I probably would just say, hey, why would I buy a Rift when I can get a Quest and play all of those games on the Quest?
Yeah, exactly. So I think this has a lot of potential. What you're saying sounds attractive to me. I'm not much of a VR guy. I've tried it here and there a couple of times, and it's just not my thing right now. But if they do some interesting things, who knows? I think it's interesting. So our next topic, and I'm gonna go a little short on this. Is I've been playing Fire Emblem Awakening recently. I started it. I got a Nintendo 2DS back in the new 2DS. That's actually like a flip screen instead of the brick. I got that this past summer because I was like, what would be nice is if I could play 3DS games. So, because the 3DS has a fantastic library.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what anybody says about it. It's a brilliant library. Yeah. So I've been playing Fire Emblem Awakening because my first Fire Emblem game was Path of Radiance. Very good game.
Is that the GameCube one?
Yeah, it's the one on the GameCube. It came out during the GameCube's lifespan. I think later on, like 04 or something like that.
Yeah,
maybe I think like 03 is.
It certainly wasn't a launch title.
It wasn't. No. It's a good game. I really like the story. I think Fire Emblem has always excelled in its character writing, and and really fleshing out interesting characters. And Awakening, I've been playing it, and my jaw drops with every line that a character makes, because I'm just like, this is so human, and yet so absurd at the same time. And so like you have a character like Chrom, who's the main. He's not the main character because you are technically the main character, but he's like the Marth, the Ike, the head honcho, the hero. He's the paragon really of the whole game, and he is easily the best Fire Emblem protagonist in my eyes. Having not played Marth's game, or like Roy's game, or really any of like the old Fire Emblem games. I haven't played those yet.
Most of them did come to the States, I didn't think.
Yeah, a lot of them didn't. I think the only hero that I think has a candle to Chrom in terms of character development is Alm and Celica in Fire Emblem Echoes. The Shadows of Valentia. I kind of hope that they do more Echoes stuff so I can play as Roy, play as all of these old characters that I never got the chance to play as. Yeah, I think so. Like Chrom is one of the best written characters in the series, probably mostly because I like Captain America so much. Because he very much takes after Captain America, and he's just like good for good's sake, like
kind of Boy Scout style character.
Yeah, but not in a cheesy Superman kind of way. More like Cap in The Winter Soldier. And
he's got some like dynamic quality to him.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you have the dynamic with him and your character, who you're sort of supposed to be able to project onto them how you feel, but it doesn't really go that way because the character Robin is who is the main or the official name of your protagonist that the character that you create. He or she is very cautious. They're a tactician, so they plan stuff out. And so the dynamic between them is really interesting because they're both best friends and they both care for each other, but they have very different approaches to each other. And then like you have side characters. My favorite side character is Henry, and it's because he's the funniest character in the whole game. Which is kind of dark to say because his whole thing is that he thinks really gruesome things are really funny. So he'll talk about like somebody will mention like, oh man, if that had happened to me, my guts would be on the floor right now. And he's like, haha, yeah, that'd be awesome. And it makes me laugh every time.
Yeah.
And he's sort of a messed up character, but you never really get why he's messed up. You just get that he is messed up. And all of his interactions with the other characters are really, really funny. You have a character like, I don't know, I could go through all of them in my head. Like there's this character Owain who thinks he doesn't really think it, but he's posing as like a dark hero, and so he gives like all of these dark speeches in all of his dialogue lines, and it's really funny. So I think that's where Fire Emblem Awakening really excels, is I think it has my favorite cast out of all of Fire Emblem. Maybe out of all of JRPGs.
Oh, tall order there.
Yeah, I know people will get on me about like FF7 and I don't know.
Well, I'd say
all sorts of.
There's some Xenoblade fans
Yeah,
out there.
Xenoblade definitely. I'm just not familiar with Xenoblade, so I can't really speak to that cast as
Played
well.
Chronicles 1 on the 3DS, but that's about all I have.
Yeah, I would say the Tales series could definitely give Fire Emblem Awakening a run for its money, just because what Fire Emblem does is it has like a lot of characters that are really well written, but they're really well written short stories about those characters instead of and it's more about character dynamics between each other rather than like just Chrom by himself doing what Chrom does, sort of like Final Fantasy 15, or a lot of the Final Fantasy games are actually more about characters by themselves and their individual stories, whereas Fire Emblem is more about the story of the group. I would say the Tales series, especially Tales of Xillia and Tales of Xillia 2, that cast is really great. Tales of Berseria, I haven't finished it yet, but the dialogue in that game is fantastic, and it's really funny.
Do you like in regards to this genre of game? Do you like these? Because I think I've noticed that. I've noticed that you like these types of games. And
I mean, I like.
Yeah.
So I appreciate a good strategy RPG, but I'm more of like a Fire Emblem strategy RPG guy. Like there has to be something more than just the strategy part of it underneath that, which is why I like, which is sort of why I don't play games like XCOM and all of that. So yeah, I mean, I like a good JRPG. Persona 5 is great. I recommend Persona 5.
It's a long game from what I've heard.
It's a long game. I finished it, and I was like, that wasn't too long. And then I looked at my playtime, and I was at 80 hours, and I was like, wow. Because it's not a tedious game, too. Like it's really fun 80 hours. I really like Persona 5. Yeah.
I think the only game I've ever spent close to that much time in, I think, was one of the Batman Arkham games.
Yeah.
Probably would be the only time. But I mean, this winter I'm looking for a good series to sink my teeth into. I might take a look at Persona.
Persona's good. I mean, it's a little jarring in terms of its style. So if you wanted something easier to sink your time into, I'd say start with the Tales game.
What consoles are they on?
3DS.
So my favorite Tales game, Tales of Xillia 2, is on PS3. But you absolutely have to play the first Tales of Xillia game in order to understand anything. PS3.
Yeah. Oh, Tales of Xillia 1 is a PS3.
Yeah, they're both PS3 games. Yeah. Gameplay's a lot of fun. The Tales series is known for its like action JRPG stuff, whereas whereas Persona takes a much more turn-based.
Yeah, I'm not a big turn-based.
Yeah, I would say if you don't like turn-based, I would say Persona's probably not for you. But it's good. I mean, the story in Persona games is really good. I really like Persona 5's
At some
story.
point, I'll probably just check out like cutscenes or something for Persona because I hear the story is the best part. So
Yeah, I mean, the story and the characters of Persona 5 are the best part, easily. So, yeah. Yeah. They're weird. They're weird games, though. They're kind of like, some of the
I like
imagery
weird
in them
games.
is like weird. Like, there's some weird stuff in there, so.
Is that part of the Shin Megami Tensei?
Yeah, well, so Persona has kind of spun off into its own thing, even though they like borrow from the Shin Megami Tensei series. I'm not terribly familiar with the Shin Megami Tensei thing, but the first Persona game is a spin-off from the Shin Megami Tensei. Like, they were called Shin Megami Tensei Persona 1, or Shin Megami Tensei Persona 2, Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3 even, I think. And then the rest of them was just like Persona 4. I think it may have been Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4 originally,
I
actually.
think it was the re-releases. I think, is
Yeah,
what
and then it was just Persona 5 now. So I imagine when Persona 6 inevitably comes out, I imagine that we will get, it won't have the Shin Megami Tensei logo attached to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, Fire Emblem. Yeah, Fire Emblem Awakening's good. Fire Emblem Fates I liked it. I liked what I played of it, or what I've played them, all three of the versions to completion. I think the cast is a lot weaker. Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia was a really fun playthrough. I really liked that game. And I'm really looking forward to the new Switch Fire Emblem game that we haven't heard jack about
Three
since
Houses?
they announced it.
Oh,
Yeah,
did
Three
they-
Houses.
Wasn't there a Switch game they ported? Was it the Wii one?
So there was the Warriors spin-off. That's like
Fire-
Hyrule Warriors.
Oh, okay, that's what I was thinking. 'Cause I thought I saw a Fire Emblem something. in
Yeah,
the store,
which I like Fire Emblem Warriors. It's good.
But it's not a Fire Emblem.
It's
game.
not a Fire Emblem game, and I mean the writing's pretty good, but it's like Fire Emblem fan service. So what they do is they do a lot of just like retelling the stories of the Fire Emblem games in a different context.
So it's like a greatest hits, essentially.
Sort of. It's not a greatest hits in the sense that like it's not just remixing those stories, but yeah, it's more like a remix of those stories. Yeah. So Fire Emblem, I'd say if you want to play Fire Emblem, the Fire Emblem series, start with Awakening easily. Like don't
Go
play.
back to like the GameCube era.
Yeah, no, like because they're very jarring games. So yeah. So yeah, Ahmad. So yeah, that's it on Fire Emblem. Ahmad, you want to talk about sports games?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the genre of
The-
sports
the
games
genre.
because
So where do you want to start with this?
I mean,
It's
I'm not.
been
Here's
quite a while.
the thing. Obviously, I'm not a huge gamer, but I do love
Yeah.
playing games when I have the time to. But as of recently, I don't have as much time to
Yeah.
play games. But I wanted to talk about sports games and what both of you guys think about sports games in general. If games like Madden and 2K and
So I think one of the most interesting topics about sports games for me.
And the
go
very
ahead.
first, and like, it doesn't have to be something recently. It could be like
Yeah,
ping
well,
pong
so
that came
yeah,
out.
well, so
Very
I guess
first.
to some degree, I guess it depends on what you mean by a sports game.
Yeah,
because
so-
by that definition, Mario and Sonic at the Olympics is a sports game.
Yeah, I think Rocket League is even considered to be a sports game.
I guess at this point, the lines between esport and sports are so
Yeah.
blurred nowadays that it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
like
well, I-
fighting games could be considered sports to
Yeah.
some degree.
I mean,
So
and it almost depends on your audience too, because aren't there even some matches that are like broadcast on ESPN now?
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think the most interesting topic about sports games is not the new ones that are coming out, because let's face it, they're mostly just iterations on what works and not really doing anything innovative. I mean, you have games like Rocket League, you have fighting games, you have League of Legends, all that stuff. Like you have the esports stuff, and that's all cool. But in terms of like Madden, FIFA, 2K.
At this point, it's mostly just a graphical update. If anything.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is I saw Rocket League playing on ESPN one of the times. And that was really interesting to see, just because how far esports has gone. It's crazy.
From what I've heard, it also angered a lot of people too. Like there's some broadcaster, I believe, I can't remember his name, but when they started broadcasting games, like video games on ESPN, he quit because he didn't want to believe that esports were like a real thing.
Well, it was the time that it broadcasted was after the NBA finals, and after everything, the basketball season was over. So it was that time where there wasn't really any sports.
Yeah.
So all they had was to air gameplay of esports. So. And that
it's not
was
like stepping on anything.
I think that's and then the other thing too is esports is starting to overtake everything. League of Legends is huge.
Yeah.
Not just as a game, but as an esport.
Rocket League is huge.
Yeah, Rocket League is massive.
Would if I want to tie it back into the Oculus Vader thing, if that gets to the point where you don't really need any cords, maybe would that possibly be an
there
esport?
could absolutely be a
Yeah, I mean there are VR sports right now.
Yeah.
Like it's on a smaller scale.
Like on an esport level, they could just as easily be something huge. Like there was on PlayStation VR on the PS VR Worlds game, there was a thing, I can't remember what it was called, but there's some kind of like sports style game that you can play with just your head moving it back and forth to bounce the ball. It's really simple, but I mean, then again, so is like the premise of like Rocket League. I could just as easily seen something like that, but more fleshed out, being a VR esport or something like. I mean, just almost makes me think of Tron.
I would think Tron, even like the racing
Oh man,
games.
what if we have Tron in like 20 years?
Oh my, Tron VR, I'm down for that.
I'm
The
so
only
down.
thing with that is the fact that Disney Interactive Studios shut down like a couple of years ago. But I'm sure they'll sell the license to somebody.
Oh man, can I get an Insomniac Tron game?
That would be the most amazing.
I hope Insomniac, if you're listening, which you're not.
They're not.
But if somehow you're listening, please make a Tron game. You're already working with Marvel. Make a Tron game.
Working with Disney.
Make a Tron game. I think that would be incredible.
That would be incredible. I love Tron Legacy is a whole topic to itself.
I
love, and the Tron, even the original
future
Tron.
episode, I'm gonna have to bring up Tron because that's an underrated.
Tron Legacy and the original Tron, and how groundbreaking those movies were. But yeah, they're sports genre.
Anyways,
sports games. So I like playing a good sports game. FIFA is something a game I played growing up. But
I mean that's always something It's been very long since the last time I played like a sports game.
When it comes to sports games, I think you have to play with. It has to be a multiplayer thing.
Yeah, it has to be with friends.
I would never sit down in single player.
Yeah, single player. So like ever since Pong, ever since it came out in 1972. And ever since that came out, it's sort of been a multiplayer platform where you can't play one. But it'd be more fun to play with a person.
Yeah, and I think that's something because sports games are starting to integrate with esports as well. So I think that's something interesting that we can talk. That is just an interesting topic. Is sports games are starting to be played as a competitive video game, when you could just as easily go out and train for
some people
sports
that may not
proper.
Be an
like
you might have like a physical problem.
So like I'm just saying it's really interesting to see that like FIFA is a huge esport, bigger than fighting games, bigger than most esports. Probably only second to games. I don't know, Dota, like MOBAs. MOBAs are at the top of the esports
The reason
chain.
why I think that FIFA's hit that like heightened level of all the others.
It's soccer.
Well, yeah, it's soccer. It's big. Well, I guess football. It's because most of the world plays that game. So if you make a video game based on that sport.
Yeah.
you're going to have an already a huge worldwide install base it just doubles your audience for who
Yeah,
plays
exactly.
sports games.
I think we also have to mention Wii and
Wii
how they
Sports.
sort of push for a more interactive
That
game.
brings me to the main point I wanted to make is, while I don't typically play a lot of these sports games, I might if I was in a party or something.
Yeah.
But what I do give credit for these sports games is that they bring in an audience who doesn't normally play games.
Yeah.
People who normally
Yeah.
wouldn't consider themselves a gamer. I have a bunch of friends I met in high school. They would normally never buy an Xbox One or a PS4, but because it has 2K on it, they went out and bought a PS4 just so they could play 2K and Madden.
Yep.
Those are the only reasons. So I think that's what I give a lot of credit to for these games, is that they get people interested in video games who would not normally be. And for somebody like some people in my family, it starts off with just, hey, we liked Wii Sports, and now we're playing so many other games.
It also gets people moving. It gets people. Wii Fit, is that a thing, right? Yes.
Well, Wii Fit was a thing. Let's not give Wii Fit
Unfortunately.
too much credit.
The
The only place that Wii Fit will ever have ever again is in Smash Brothers.
Or an old folks home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fair point.
Yeah. Sports.
I still remember going into like a daycare and still seeing the Nintendo 64 in 2011.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of things that probably go into that too. So. But one of the things I wanted to say about sports games was from a sort of completely more corporate side, thinking about EA and how they have sort of cannibalized themselves over the past couple of years. It's almost embarrassing to watch them flail about and try to grab at all these different things. But the one thing that has kept them afloat is games like Madden. Is Madden the only one they have?
I want to mention this Battlefront. They also have that game, but that wouldn't be considered a sports game.
It's not a sports game. Moreover, they really messed themselves up.
Yeah.
With that.
FIFA is also another.
So I know
sports
they have Madden.
franchise?
Don't they have NHL?
I think so.
Are licensed to EA.
I think
with EA is that a lot of the audience, as I stated earlier with this, that's going to be buying these games from EA is not keeping up with microtransactions. They're not keeping up with DLC. They're just buying the game and playing.
Yeah.
So people online like ourselves who are outraged at what they're doing with Battlefront 2, they're not paying attention to that. They're just going to go out and buy whatever year the newest Madden game is, and they're not going to even realize the fact that all this online controversy is happening because you could buy, I don't know, a different jersey in the game for 99 cents.
Exactly. But yeah.
So they have NHL, FIFA, NBA Live, not 2K.
Nobody plays NBA
And-
Live.
Nobody does.
And UFC, as well as Madden.
So
So
got everything except for 2K
and baseball.
and baseball. Does PlayStation hold the MLB license?
It's. I think there's something weird with. What's it called? The
MLB The Show.
MLB The Show. That's right.
That's the PlayStation series.
Show 18. Let's look at that. And I don't think it's a yearly franchise either.
Oh no, The Show is not a yearly franchise.
It's published by. It's published by Sony.
Yeah.
I guess they do own the. And Sony San Diego develops it, so I guess they do own MLB The Show, which is pretty crazy that baseball games are owned by a first party.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Like some of the other ones though are surprising. Like you would think something like NASCAR, for example, or something like that, would have a major annualized franchise because there's a huge install base there.
Yeah.
There's games like NASCAR Heat, was it 2 just came
Yeah.
out? But there's no annualized franchise there. I think that really it just comes down to what EA is doing with their annualized franchises.
Yeah.
You
They
have
had-
Madden and 2K that come through the
Yeah.
EA for 2K.
They had a so there. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for EA, and there are a lot of things that started, and they just stopped making. PGA, their last game was 2015. NCAA, their last game was 2013. They had a couple of like Mutant League spin-offs, which I'm gonna click on these links.
Who makes the WWE games?
I think that's changed hands a couple times.
Okay.
At some point. I could be wrong about that.
WWE 2K16, I think, is probably
Is
a
that
video
an
game.
annualized franchise?
Yeah, I think WWE is as well. Oh, dang it.
So for
This
those at
internet.
home, what a lot of these companies do nowadays, even unlike movies where you gotta wait 2 years for an installment or 2 years plus for that, a lot of these video game series will just kind of put out a new game every year and just tweak it slightly, something like a Call of Duty or an NBA 2K or a Madden.
So 2K Sports is a thing. I forgot about them. They just do so they do NBA 2K and the WWE 2K, but they don't do anything else. So and then they're like a part of Take-Two,
Yeah, so in a larger
which
brand.
Take-Two is like
They're massive.
aren't they? Yeah, they're like aren't they GTA?
And they own Rockstar.
Yeah.
And I
So
think they also didn't they own the BioShock?
yeah,
companies?
they have BioShock.
Or,
I think they
what's
have
the
the
other one?
BioShock license still.
Yeah, 'cause
Which means we're gonna get like a BioShock
What was-
multiplayer game or something.
what was the studio that owned Irrational Games? Didn't they shut down?
Yeah, they shut down, and I think what's the guy's name? The BioShock director, Kevin Levine. He went
Oh, no, it was
to
Ken Levine.
Ken Levine. That's
Yeah.
right. He developed his own like indie studio, and then I don't know if we've heard anything from him since.
Yeah.
I think he's the BioShock license. That's a whole other thing from what we were talking about. But
Frick.
essentially, Take-Two, they're just about as big as EA at this point, if not bigger. Just
Yeah.
For the simple fact that GTA 5 is
Jeez, there are
massive.
lots of series on this list of games published by Take-Two Interactive.
Yeah, no, they're huge. Nobody ever really talks about them outside
Yeah.
of the studios they own. but they're
Yeah,
massive.
well, I think part of that is like you don't think about Take-Two when you think of GTA.
Yeah, you think of Rockstar.
Yeah, you think of Rockstar. Similarly, you don't think of well, I guess you don't think of XCOM when you think of 2K. You think of nobody because it's like 2K China.
Well, you also
or
gotta think about,
something.
it's the same thing with like Bethesda. They're owned by ZeniMax, but you never
Yeah.
hear anybody say, "Oh, I can't wait for the new ZeniMax media game."
Yeah.
They say Bethesda.
Yeah, I think Take-Two is interesting because you never think about it. You never think about games as a Take-Two game. You think of them as a different, like a 2K game or a Rockstar game or a. I guess those are really the only two.
And not the publisher.
Yeah. Which is, well, I think is perfectly fine. I mean, I think it does a little to hurt brand recognition because you're just sort of giving it off to the developers instead of
Putting your name on it.
Take-Two itself.
Mhm.
But I mean, I think it works for them. I mean, they're making money, so
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
I-
the money, they don't care.
I mean, they'll just keep selling GTA 5 for the rest of the century, and it'll be fine.
I think at this point, the days, and I know this is way off topic, but I think the days with Rockstar making new original properties is probably gone. I
Yeah.
think they're just gonna alternate between like maybe a re-release here and there of their older games, and it's just gonna be
Maybe.
a new Red Dead or a new GTA.
Yeah.
Like I think if at most we might get like we got with LA Noire remastered,
Mhm.
we might just eventually get here's a remastered version of like what was the Midnight Club, something
Yeah.
like that. And then they'll just alternate between here's a new Red Dead and here's a new GTA.
Yeah.
Depending on how good Red Dead Redemption 2 is.
Which is kind of a shame because I'd like to see them do something else.
So I would do, but with now GTA 5 making more money than pretty much any entertainment thing ever.
Except for Minecraft.
Except for Minecraft. And to an extent Star Wars. But like
Hmm.
GTA 5 is up there in terms of one of the most
Yeah.
highest grossing things ever. So they're
One
just
of the
gonna
most
be-
expensive, highest grossing things
Yeah.
out there as well.
So when the inevitable GTA 6 rolls around, you can expect
Yeah.
that thing to be huge.
So, yeah. Sports games.
Yeah. Sports
Sports games.
games.
Yeah, I think I'm always interested by sports games.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm more interested by is this Metal Gear movie.
So You're gonna have to eventually watch the length on this one because I'm gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
So I'm a
We've
massive
gotten way over on every topic so far, so it's okay.
I'm a massive Metal Gear fan. It is my Metal Gear Solid for the PS1 is my favorite video game of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I've played every installment. Mine is like 2 PSP spin-offs. I love the series. So when I was always a little bit nervous based on the whole video game movie curse that's been going on since the dawn of video game movies. I was a little nervous to hear them making a movie, but from what I've seen so far, I'm actually hopeful for this.
Okay.
The director, Jordan Vogt Roberts, I believe is his name, seems to actually know how the series works. He's not making a direct adaptation of any specific game. He's taking the core idea and translating it into a movie. As much as I'd love to see the movie directed and translated, I think it's much better that he does that because there is no feasible way to translate the entire story of Metal Gear into a movie without creating your own kind of idea.
Yeah, I mean this is a little bit off topic, but it's really hard to adapt video game stories because part of video games is that you can stop and smell the roses. With movies, you can't do that. You don't have time to do that.
I think they're going to be able to solve with Metal Gear. And that is the fact that those games are already so cinematic. They've kind of avoided that problem. There really is no breathing room in Metal Gear, except for the 5th one being open world.
Yeah.
But because aside from the 5th one being open world, and to an extent, Peace Walker, they're all linear narrative games. Unless you pause the game, it's going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if there's any series that could potentially be a quality movie, it could be Metal Gear because it's already designed to be a movie.
Yeah.
Have they decided whether they're doing like Snake or Big Boss?
They haven't said anything about
Snake.
I would expect it to be Solid Snake.
Yeah.
I think that the Big Boss storyline is too complex at this point to just launch straight into that.
Yeah, I mean, I know nothing about Metal Gear, and when people talk about Big Boss, I'm like, I played Smash Brothers. Isn't Snake the main protagonist of the series?
That's the complicated thing is there's a lot of clones involved, and it's just kind of a minor spoiler.
And I'm like, Big Boss looks like old Snake.
Yeah.
Is he old Snake?
Spoilers for a 20-year-old game.
Yeah.
Solid Snake is a clone of Big Boss, and you find that Big Boss is later in character you play as in a prequel.
Okay.
So Big Boss, you play as him in the 3rd game in a prequel, and then you always play as Solid Snake as the main character for the most part.
Do you play as Solid Snake in Phantom Pain?
No. You play in the original 2 MSX computer games. Solid 1, 2, and 4 is Solid Snake. I think there's Solid 3, Peace Walker, the Phantom Pain, and Ground Zeroes is Big Boss.
Oh.
Huh. Are those all prequels?
To an extent, yes.
To an extent, they are prequels.
It's with Metal Gear, it's complicated because the timeline's all over the place.
Man, I can't wait for Kojima to finish Death Stranding so he can actually make stories that make sense.
Yeah.
First time I was looking at those trailers, it doesn't look like it's making any sense.
Well, no, I mean, I think I want to get all of the nonsense out of him so he can actually start scratch with something new.
Yeah.
I think with Metal Gear, I love Metal Gear. I'm not gonna lie, it is an insanely weird series.
You're talking to a Kingdom Hearts fan over here, so it's okay.
I think we have yet to see a good, faithful adaptation of a video game to a movie.
We've come close a couple times.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that Ratchet and Clank movie had potential. I just
just thinking off the top of my head, the Angry Birds movie was interesting. The Tomb Raider film they came out with last year
The
was...
animated ones you make for kids based off of like a smaller premise, those work because
Those
they
work.
know what they are.
Yeah.
They're just being made for kids.
Yeah.
These ones that are trying to be these massive tentpole franchise starters, they're just doing it just so they can cash in on the fact that this is a big name.
Yeah.
Like, which I guess
Tomb
Angry
Raider.
Birds kind of did to an extent, but like Ratchet and Clank, that series doesn't exactly carry a whole lot of weight with children.
Yeah.
So like, we'll just take this core idea, it's got an anthropomorphic whatever that kind of animal that Ratchet is, and then kids will eat it up.
Yeah.
Whereas
and it
Metal
didn't
Gear,
work.
Well, it didn't work, but they at least were able to translate the core idea of the story.
Yeah.
Whereas something like Metal Gear, it's very hard to translate that to an audience, and you can't make this your big, massive, tentpole blockbuster movie. That's not what Metal Gear is.
Yeah.
Metal Gear, while it may have action in it, it's not designed just to be a Call of Duty style series.
Yeah.
It's very much a story-heavy, almost like a cross between like James Bond and or something like the Italian Job.
Yeah.
I think this is a really bad example, but I think the Metal Gear Solid movie for like the 30th. I think this is the 35th anniversary of Metal Gear this year, something like that.
Give it 5 more years and they can come out on the 40th anniversary.
I think what's been interesting they've done so far is they showed some concept art the directors were releasing on Twitter, and the concept art looks really cool. It looks like it's how Metal Gear would look in real life.
Nice.
It's something like 30 or 31 days of Metal Gear or something like that. Check out the director's concept art that he's been tweeting out at home. It's worth checking out. It's got, if you're a Metal Gear fan, it'll kind of ease the nervousness you have about
the
it being
worries.
a Metal Gear movie.
Yeah.
That's the opposite. Every time I hear about the Sonic movie, I'm like, what are you doing?
So I think while I am nervous about this Metal Gear Solid movie because I love the series and I have no idea how they're going to translate a story as complex as the series into a 2-hour movie, especially since most of these games kind of bleed over into the next game and the next installment. I have no idea how they're going to take 2 hours.
Just do something. Just say that it's a completely offshoot story, but it's still like another Big Boss clone. That's what you do.
So you mean like take place in the same universe as the games?
Well, so yeah, but or maybe like a branching timeline sort of thing where it's like you start out like maybe the movie starts at the same time that the first time you play as Solid Snake starts, and they're both like clones of they're both Solid Snake, but like you follow this different Solid Snake.
It's like an espionage, and that fits with the series actually because there's always like, oh, this person exists and you had no idea.
Yeah, exactly. So like you could have characters show up and stuff. I know nothing about Metal Gear, so you'd have to fill in those blanks for me, but I'd be able to.
Well, there are certainly gaps in the timeline where you can fill stuff in. I mean, the series, the core timeline, counting the prequels, takes place between 1965 and 2018. So there are certainly gaps in there in which you can fill in the timeline.
Yeah.
What I would have liked them to do the most is just the original 2 games in the series before it was called Metal Gear Solid were just Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. Metal Gear 2 did not come out in the States until it was a bonus feature on the special edition of Metal Gear Solid 3. And those first 2 games they were 8-bit games for a Japanese computer called the MSX. That's where the series started, but it didn't get huge until Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PS1.
Yeah.
So what I would have liked them to do is take the storyline of the 2 MSX games and just make movies out of those because those games are so dated at this point.
Yeah.
I tried to play them and it is so hard to play those games nowadays. I would rather them just take the core plots of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 and just make that a movie because it's not as nearly as complex of a story as the Metal Gear Solid games. And it's not nearly as long as those games, so you can easily translate that to a movie.
Who knows? Maybe that's what they're doing.
Maybe. I currently have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
I hope it's good. That's really all I can say about it because I have no idea what they can do with this movie.
Yeah.
I do not envy the task of making a Metal Gear movie because it's.
That doesn't sound like a fun thing to do.
I don't know.
I'm gonna tell you that much. Like maybe if you love Metal Gear and like this is your chance to make a Metal Gear movie.
I would never want to make the Metal Gear movie.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the games, but anytime I hear video game adaptation into a movie,
I'm always skeptical
I'm
right
always
from
like,
the start.
I don't know about that, but.
I think if you're making a video game movie, you don't adapt any of the storylines for the games. I think you make a movie that takes place within the universe of the series, like what they did with Resident Evil. There's 3 CGI animated Resident Evil movies, and they take place within the canon of the series, and they're good because they don't try and explain everything to everybody who hasn't played the games. They just say, play the games, watch the movie, you know who we are, let's go. It's kind of you don't have to take all this time doing exposition that the games take place over 8 hours.
Yeah, I mean, what I want, like, I wouldn't want the story of the new Spider-Man game to be adapted into a movie because it's good as a Spider-Man game, even though it's better than Homecoming. So, yeah, I mean, I think we should, I mean, they're making that Uncharted movie, too.
If it ever actually happens.
Not to mention that Last of Us movie, which,
well,
why?
The Metal Gear movie's been in development since, like, 2006. But also another thing, if it ever happens.
Yeah, these movies have all been in development hell.
most
to men,
video game
by the
movies
way.
have always at some point been in development hell. They did
Yeah,
eventually
so-
get pushed out because the budget's getting too inflated.
So, yeah, Metal Gear movie.
Please be good.
Yeah,
Please be
hopefully.
good.
Yeah.
Please.
Speaking of things that are sort of like, Joaquin Phoenix
Yeah.
as the Joker.
Joaquin Phoenix as a Joker. I think most of everybody.
I'm gonna look up this art.
Yeah, most everybody I've talked to have heard about this. I think it looks really good. I think it looks really good. I love Joaquin. Firstly, I just want to say I love Joaquin Phoenix as an actor. He's an amazing actor. He's really talented as an actor, and some of the art I'm seeing of just the costume design of his character looks really interesting. Just the color palette. Yeah.
My Offenhauer's internet is terrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. I'm trying to look up the pictures, but I can't. But no, I was gonna say you could like take it.
Oh, I've seen the photos. I think when
There
I
we go.
first saw the photos of Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, I have to admit I was not a fan. I didn't like how. I'm not talking about the one of just him, his like Joaquin Phoenix's face.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the ones where he's first in makeup. I didn't totally love it. It didn't feel too Joker to me, especially with like the blue diamond eye makeup.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I'd
that
say
makeup is kind of weird.
Seeing more footage and seeing him from like the waist up in the suit and with the makeup on, I'm actually sold on it.
Yeah.
I think it
Now that
works.
I've seen it in more like in action rather than just him standing on like a camera test. It looks to be pretty good. I'm still wondering how this could possibly fit into the DCEU.
I don't know
I don't think they even care anymore.
Yeah,
because,
I don't think they care. I don't know if they'll actually tie this into an actual Batman movie later on if it makes really good money. But
Oh my gosh. Don't even talk to me about all of that stuff at
What?
this point. Like,
I did hear a theory. I can't remember who this was, so credit to whoever it was, whoever said this theory online. But I think it might have been Filmhouse on the Funhouse channel. But I think what would have been would be really interesting for them to do, tie this into the DCEU somehow, is we see the Robin costume in
Joseph.
in Batman vs Superman.
oh, that'd
Yeah.
be cool.
It would be interesting if maybe Jared Leto's Joker is actually Jason Todd,
Yeah.
and Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is actually the real Joker, and at some point we see him come out and like address the fact that Jared Leto, his Joker, is not the real Joker.
Yeah.
I
Do
think
a
that'd be
sort of
fascinating.
Batman Beyond Jason Todd
Yeah.
as the Joker
And then
sort
we
of
could
thing.
get, I mean, I think it'd be cool. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that he has to like kill off the other Joker. It could just mean that hey, this, and it could also set up a really interesting storyline for a Batman movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so
I mean,
too.
I would be. My issue with the DCEU right now is, for one thing, it is an utter chaos.
Oh, it's
Um,
Oh my
there
God.
there
Wait,
is
what's
there
so-
is no there's
Aquaman's coming out next one. Right?
Aquaman.
Yeah,
I don't
Aquaman's-
know what I hope for Aquaman.
Yeah,
I don't know if James Wan doing it.
Yeah.
That's really the only hope I
It
have.
looks
Is
like
Shazam-
Thor.
Is Shazam part of the
Shazam looks good, but
We don't
Shazam
know.
Is he a part of the DCEU? Okay.
I don't think anybody really knows.
Shazam looks good because it doesn't look like a DCEU movie right
It
now.
looks like a Marvel movie.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like a Marvel movie,
Yeah.
actually.
Which that I actually don't like because I've already got Marvel movies. Don't.
Yeah.
I hate how DC is so worried about appeasing the fans that they don't make any commitments to anything.
Yep. They don't make any commitment.
Like,
They just.
Batman vs Superman. I like the Ultimate Cut a lot. I thought the Ultimate Cut was actually.
I haven't
pretty good.
seen it,
Yeah.
so I can't really
It's
say.
the
it
cut they
right
released
now.
on Blu-ray.
Mhm.
But I think what their problem was is going after that. They're like panicking because fans were saying, "Oh well, this," which they brought that on themselves because they released a different cut in theaters, one that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I think The Darkness. They shouldn't have listened to the complaints on that.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a dark movie, but they were doing their own thing.
Mhm.
And say what you will about cramming Batman and Wonder Woman into a movie already without them getting solo films.
Yeah.
At least we did get a Wonder Woman solo film, not
Yeah.
Batman yet.
Yeah.
Eh,
Had Wonder
People know who Batman is, though.
You
Like,
don't
that
get Batman
works.
solo film, you know who Bruce Wayne is. You know the guy.
Yeah.
Had Wonder Woman came out before the Batman vs Superman film, I think I would have been a lot more excited.
I think really, if you only cut out those scenes with like the weird like Photoshop
Yeah.
photos of Flash and
Yeah.
Aquaman and all that, you cut that scene out and then end before the Doomsday fight,
Mhm.
you've got a really
Yeah,
solid
I
film.
think cut the Doomsday fight out, and I think the movie works a lot better.
I think that you should have saved Doomsday for Justice League, and that was your main.
Yeah,
that would've been really cool.
I think Doomsday is the biggest mistake in that entire movie because, like,
I didn't even know Doomsday was in that movie.
They spoilers for anybody who doesn't want spoilers.
no, it was in a trailer. Like, they spoiled it themselves.
Oh.
Like, it's not.
Essentially, Lex Luthor takes Zod's body, goes into the crashed Kryptonian ship from Man of Steel, and uses what is essentially a mother box, which came into Justice League, to turn Zod's body into Doomsday.
Oh.
Which is, you know.
Which is not comic book accurate at all.
Yeah, that's like, I've never heard that before.
Also
Doomsday
leads to one of the worst mistakes that DC could have made in killing Superman.
Yeah.
Which that is a very famous comic book storyline.
Yeah.
You don't do the death of Superman this early in your universe.
You don't
pull that off.
You don't do that, nor do you do that and then revive him next movie.
Yeah.
You wait and drag. I think they should have done. There should have been a Batman movie before that to show, because like Batman's always been a dark character.
Yeah.
And the whole thing they play off.
I agree.
Superman is gone, so now the world is dark again. A Batman movie in a world without Superman would be fascinating.
Yeah.
I would love to see how they play that off.
Because Batman by himself, I mean, you sort of get that in the Dark Knight movies.
Yeah.
But you don't really, because there's
no
like,
Superman, so
there's no Superman, and there's no like context for Superman.
Yeah.
In a world where there was Superman, but now there isn't, that's even more interesting.
I would love to, and they tried to do that with Suicide Squad to an extent. I just didn't care. So it's really old.
Yeah, Suicide Squad looked bad from the beginning. I was like, the Joker looks okay, but.
And I think it was inevitable that talking about the Joker movie that we have to bring up the DCEU because they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
They have to stop listening to every single whim of the fans and the box office. They just need to trust their directors and let them make something. Let Jeff Johns be the head of your department. Let him call the shots. Just say, here, we're gonna make Aquaman, Shazam, Joker, Wonder Woman, and then say, here goes the Batman movie, and just lay out a slate. You don't just say, oh well, now we're gonna just greenlight a Batgirl movie because why not? That character's popular, right? I hate that. They're just like, let's greenlight a movie based on popularity.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
This is I wanna compare this movie to the Solo movie we just got over the summer, where I didn't see the movie because I don't want to see the movie, but I saw the honest trailers for it, and it was pretty much they had things like it was a sort of an origin story for Solo, but it wasn't. I wanted it to be more of a character study. The Joker film should be more of a character study. Not just, hey, this is how he got his green hair, this is how he got his purple jacket, this is how he got his makeup.
But that's also what's sort of interesting about the Joker is that you don't know who he is.
Which is what I love about the Heath Ledger Joker.
I get that they're doing, from what I've seen in this footage so far, and what we've heard from Todd Phillips, the director, right? Is that he's doing something completely different than we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
Which makes me nervous, but also intrigued, because Heath Ledger's Joker was also something different than we'd ever seen before.
Yeah, and people were skeptical
and
about
defined the Joker for years.
So I think Joaquin Phoenix is a fantastic actor, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. That being said, I don't want to know too much about the Joker's past.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's what makes it terrifying, is because we know nothing about him.
Yeah.
Interesting. De Niro is cast.
He was, but is he? I thought, it's because Alec Baldwin was, and then he dropped out, and then the guy.
Oh, thank the Lord!
Yeah.
Goodness gracious!
You don't like
I
Alec
don't.
Baldwin?
Well, so I like Alec Baldwin. I do not like him in a Joker movie. I don't like that idea at all.
The casting is. I would never have expected most of the casting for this movie.
Robert De Niro, I didn't know he was in the movie.
Who did they just cast as Thomas Wayne?
It might be Mark Moran, or maybe it's one of these guys. I don't know.
That's also an interesting thing too. Is when is this in timeline-wise taking place? Because if Thomas Wayne's in it, that means Bruce Wayne is still alive.
I want to say, based on this image, I think it might be pre-21st century.
Are they going to do the thing where it was Joker all along who killed Batman's parents?
They'll probably do that, but then it also makes, based on Joaquin Phoenix's age, that makes him, early 60s by the time Bruce Wayne is the age of Batman?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, so Brett Cullen is Thomas Wayne.
Unless maybe this is like an Elseworlds thing. Maybe this is like Flashpoint where they have Thomas Wayne as Batman.
I would be okay with this being a movie entirely separate from anything else.
From anything else?
If they just said, this is an Elseworlds, Bruce and Martha died, and now Thomas Wayne is Batman.
Yeah.
That I would love to see, because that is something completely different.
Yeah. Based on the wardrobe in this picture, and we could put this up on the screen.
Put it up on the screen.
Yeah. Some of the costumes they have look like it's not from anything early 2000s or even recently. It looks like maybe 70s.
I think they said 80s.
80s, okay. 80. That looks more that. Yeah, that looks like it's a jacket or just from the 80s. That's what I would think.
I mean, you guys can see I'm shaking my head this entire time. I have very little hope for this movie.
I think I'm gonna lie.
I have
want it to be
no-
good, but this is the only movie currently in the DCU that is in production that I have any hope for.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, that's true.
Aquaman just looks like
Whoa.
it's going to be a Thor ripoff as much as I want it to be good.
Yeah.
And I know there'll probably eventually comments, if this ever does get big enough, that, oh, you're just a DC hater. I love DC characters. I think Batman is one of my favorite superheroes. I love Superman. I really want them to do well, but it's not DC the characters or DC the storylines. It's the fact that Warner Brothers is dooming this to fail.
Yeah.
I want DC to be great, but they just... And I think Man of Steel was great. I thought Wonder Woman was alright. I liked the Ultimate Cut of Batman vs. Superman. But Suicide Squad, Justice League was a disappointment. They're greenlighting literally every movie that hits their desk. They need to just lay out a plan and follow it. Now, if it doesn't all follow a universe, that's fine. But just start having a plan.
A few things that give me hope. Martin Scorsese, Bradley Cooper, Todd Phillips are all producers. That's super interesting to me. I'm getting the sense...
Martin Scorsese is one of my all-time favorite directors.
Yeah, and Martin Scorsese obviously brought De Niro with him.
Yeah.
Scorsese wouldn't sign on to something he didn't believe in.
Yeah.
He didn't believe in it, and he didn't see some interest in something that he wanted to.
And Scorsese is known for the gangster genre of film. I wonder if this is going to be more of like a gangster crime movie,
especially since it's set in the 80s.
That would give me. I don't want it to be Goodfellas, the Joker. That's not what I want it to be. But I'd be interested if they took that sort of direction.
Even though it's not a Scorsese movie, I'm expecting like the Killing Joke comic crossed with The Godfather. That's what I'm expecting.
I'm not expecting more. I'm not expecting The Godfather, but The Killing Joke.
Period piece.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Period piece. Yeah.
Like, he's like, imagine like in the comics they have what's his name? There's the big time gangster not Vito Corleone.
In Godfather.
There's like a big Batman.
The only one I can think of is the Penguin, I guess, who was like more of a gangster.
The Penguin is a crime boss.
What if it's like, instead of Vito Corleone, like in Godfather, we just have Penguin's the crime boss and Joker's just causing mayhem.
Yeah.
And then eventually we have, I don't know, Thomas Wayne Batman pop up. It's a gang war. It's Joker up against the Penguin. Yeah. That would be fascinating.
I think it's. I almost don't like the fact that Brett Cullen as Thomas Wayne is so highly top. He's not so high up in the billing because I'd almost want him to be like 5 minutes at the end. Right, like I don't. I sort of want this. I sort of want this Joker movie to simultaneously not be an origin story and also not have anything to do with Batman.
I don't think those have anything to do with that. It's going to tie in the Waynes somehow. Yeah. There's no way. Like you're going to see the Wayne building.
But that's not what I want.
I don't think it's going to tie in the Wayne. I don't think it's going to tie in the Wayne.
I think that somehow there's going to. I'm calling it right now. There's going to be something where Joker somehow he's going to rob something. It's going to be like a Wayne truck that he robs.
I'm going to tell you something. A DC exec would call us really stupid for thinking that there is no way that the Waynes are in this.
Well,
movie.
I would think it'd be more smart, but
you might think it's yeah.
But we all know that DC, the executives, they're not smart. They're not smart.
Yeah,
so what would be a smart move would be to detach this completely from the DCEU universe and try to make something original and different. But we all know that's not going to be the case. But who knows? I mean, that's what I think. I think it'll be really. Yeah. I don't think it'll work if they have the Wayne. If they tie in the Wayne.
Wait, so how old is the guy who's playing Thomas Wayne? How old is he?
I'll find it.
I was gonna say there's no possible way based on how old I think this actor is for them to possibly tie it together because he can't.
Brett Cullen. So he looks like mid 40s.
Yeah, so you subtract 30 years off that, 10 years old. There's no way he could possibly be the father of Bruce Wayne picked with Ben Affleck, who was already much older
frick.
than
This man is old. He was born in 56.
The guy who plays Thomas Wayne?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so
what?
Either way though, there's still no way how they can line it up to him be Ben Affleck's Batman's father.
Yeah.
They can't line that up. Also the fact that now in the timeline they're pushing this forward from the 80s to
He played a congressman in The Dark Knight Rises.
Interesting.
Really? Are we just like recasting?
Recasting previous Batman.
Also, he was in Ghost Rider, the
Oh, wow.
07 movie.
Great film.
Oh my God. Which one was it? The first one or second one?
First
'Cause-
one was 07. Why would I know that?
I mean, I would have just told you it was 07.
But
It's right
yeah.
here. Yeah, I don't know.
I think
I'm
that'll be
gonna
interesting.
forego talking about the Spider-Man trilogy because I don't have the energy to talk about that and this.
Yeah.
It's just like a long, drawn-out DC.
Yeah.
Well, I think
well, so-
what I loved about because if you were gonna do that, I might as well just talk more about this. But
Yeah.
what I loved about the Heath Ledger Joker was the fact that there were two scenes specifically when he mentions his origin story of how he got the scar.
Yeah.
Which time? There was the
So
one-
there was two times,
Rachel
right? Yeah.
and
So
then-
Rachel, and then there was another one where with the I think one of the heads of the gangsters.
Oh, yeah.
He mentioned how his dad did it, and then
And then he also talks about how his wife did it.
his wife did it. So that's what I loved about that. And I think somebody
It wasn't how his wife did it, it was how he did it to make his wife happy.
did it to make his wife.
Oh, is
happy.
that what it was?
That was with Rachel, and the head of the
Yeah.
gangster was when he
His dad.
told when his dad did it. That's I remember watching that, and I was like, this guy is just completely insane. There was no origin story, nothing, and
We know nothing.
we know nothing about him, and nothing is true. He's off the chains, and it's
Yeah, like you don't even know if he believes what he's saying
and if
or
he's
not.
and then what is his motives? Why is
Yeah.
he doing this? Is it because his dad? Is it because
Because he
his-
wants to watch
That's
the
what I
world
love
burn.
about it. It's like that line from Michael Caine is out
Yeah.
there, just some men just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
I think that's a fascinating character.
Yeah,
It's like all these other Batman villains, it's either money or power. Or
Yeah.
that
yeah,
Joker just wants to see everything burn.
Yeah.
I think that's such an, especially the way they play in Dark Knight, it's such an
Yeah.
antithesis to Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne,
Yeah.
who wants everything to be order and control.
yeah.
I think that's what makes him such a perfect
Yeah.
Antagonist.
antagonist to Bruce Wayne. Is
Yeah.
he's the complete opposite, but also at the same time, it's not like how in most superhero movies where the villain is just the dark version of the hero. He still remains his own character rather
Yeah.
than just like evil Bruce Wayne.
Evil Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So
I
I'm
just
gonna say something a little controversial. I
Oh,
want a
no.
Batman movie that has nothing to do with the Joker.
I think it would be interesting. I'd like to see that.
Which The Dark Knight Rises kind of was.
But to an extent, not really though, because everything that Bane was trying to accomplish just rode off the back of what
Yeah.
it started.
Yeah. So like,
yeah.
I
May-
want
what-
I want the Joker not mentioned at all in the solo Batman movie.
Has there been a Batman movie outside of, I guess the old like Joel Schumacher ones didn't, but has there been a Batman movie other than like those three that not I don't even count the animated ones that didn't mention the Joker?
I can't think of one. I
I
mean,
don't
I
think
haven't
so.
seen all of them, so I
I
can't say.
assume at some point Batman returned. It's been a
He's-
long time.
So he's like he's a quote unquote cameo in Batman Begins, but it's not even that because they just show like the Joker card and that's it.
Yeah.
Still,
It's still mentioning the
it's still
Joker.
mentioning the Joker.
Oh.
So
Like,
I
I'm
want.
Sure Batman Returns. It's been a long time since I saw it, but I'm sure they somehow addressed because he was the villain in the previous one.
Yeah, So I want this next solo Batman movie to be Red Hood, or Two-Face, or
I want
Bane.
to see. Here's the thing.
or-
I know they made the Jim Carrey Riddler, but I want to see a more serious take on that and how the psychological effects
Yeah,
of Edward
Riddler.
Nygma could be.
I mean, Batman has this awesome rogues
or the
gallery.
Mad Hatter too. The Mad Hatter I think
Thanks to
was
Spider-Man,
interesting.
Yeah.
Batman has got the best rogues
Yeah.
gallery of
Yeah.
any superhero.
Yeah. And so like, I just think we're focusing so hard on the Joker, and it's so disappointing because you have characters like Red Hood, like
Mad Hatter.
Mad Hatter, Riddler, the Penguin,
Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze. Not the
Mr.
Arnold
Freeze.
Schwarzenegger one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Oh.
Mr. Freeze, if they did like a real serious interpretation
Yeah.
of Mr. Freeze,
Like
that
the-
would be amazing.
Like the episode we talked about in the animated series.
Hard
Yeah.
Ice.
Yep.
Oh, was it Hard Ice?
I think it was. I think that might have been the second one they made of that. It might have been Heart of Ice though.
Or, yeah, something like that. Whatever
Something
the
like-
Batman animated series Mr. Freeze episode was,
Yeah.
they just made that live action.
Yeah. I'd be perfectly fine
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
Like,
No, it's
yeah,
just- I think-
I perfectly agree with you there. I think I like Heath Ledger's Joker a lot.
I like. This is. I don't know if
I
this
think
is an.
it's brilliant.
I don't-
Jack
I don't-
Nicholson was great too.
Yeah. I don't. I don't
Yeah.
know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I like Jack Nicholson's one. I like as a kid. I loved his.
So yeah, I like it. So I think my issue with the Batman movie. All right. So sorry about that, everybody. We have to kind of cut
Technical
it
difficulties
because we
there.
had some technical difficulties. Next week we're still sort of figuring this out.
Yeah.
So next week we should be able to
We're still
consolidate this a lot.
But Jack Nicholson's Joker.
Yep, Jack
Yeah.
Nicholson's Joker. And I was going to say, it's one thing that sort of, I want to tie it back into Joaquin Phoenix. His costume, Jack Nicholson's costume and Joaquin Phoenix's costume is sort of similar in a way. They're wearing that two-piece suit, and it's not like the Heath Ledger Joker or anything.
It's more of a clown look than an insane clown look.
Yeah, he looks like he could be potentially more of a gangster, which is interesting if Scorsese is producing it. So one of the movies that I think. Oh, are we good?
Oh yeah. We're
okay.
Fine. Keep going.
So Scorsese, for me, one of the most underrated films he has is King of Comedy, and
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it. It was a really good film. It was very different than the rest of his films.
Okay.
More of a character study of a person who is really just wacky and weird. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I want to see something like that where if they could dive into more of the Joker's personality.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Jack Nicholson's Joker a lot. My issue is I don't like it when the Joker is the one that killed Bruce Wayne's parents.
I think that's limiting the world too much.
Yeah, because it's like why would you do something like that? Because you could do all manner of things with who killed Batman's parents. Like you could do all sorts of things with that, and I'd be super interested in.
I think it's better if it's just some no name. I think that's better.
I think that's better overall. But if it's not just some no name and it's an actual villain, don't make it the Joker, because the Joker is supposed to come from nowhere, be nobody, except for the fact that he's the Joker. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of interested in this movie. I'm also sort of not interested in this movie.
I'm really excited. I have talked to a lot of people about it.
I'm hoping it's good. I don't really have a whole lot of a reason to think it is going to be good.
Yeah.
Based on the DCEU's track record.
Yeah.
But what does give me hope is Martin Scorsese.
Robert
Scorsese.
De Niro.
He would not sign on to a movie that was going to just already be a train wreck.
He's also making his film that's coming out, The Irishman. The Irishman's coming out, and I think Robert De Niro is also in that too.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that Scorsese brought De Niro with him, and that has to mean something.
From what I've seen, I think actually with this film, I think Scorsese probably brought this to Warner Brothers rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Because I don't see.
I do remember Scorsese being in the headline when they announced
because I don't think Warner Brothers would have had this concept on their own by themselves.
I think this is something Scorsese wanted to do and he brought to Warner Brothers. I don't see this being a Warner Brothers saying we're going to do a Joker movie. Who do we get? And then just go straight to Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, because doing a Joker standalone,
especially
from a corporate perspective, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I hope it's good, but I don't have a ton of faith in it. Yeah. But I really, really want it to be good because it based on the premise, it could be amazing.
Yep.
So, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, interesting. Yeah. I know we're going really long, but that's okay.
DC we had a lot of anger with DC to vent.
Yeah, DC. Oh my gosh, I should just stop.
Oh, I literally just remembered the villain in Justice League, and I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it.
Funny how it takes you that long to remember the villain. Clearly shows how memorable he was.
I don't remember his name. That's why I have to say villain.
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf. Oh wow. Okay. Doomsday would have been so much more better, dude.
Well, even Doomsday, Doomsday is just
we're still just got off of DC here.
I know, but I don't know. I want to see a world where DC and Marvel compete with films that are equally as good as each other, and each time topping each other off. But
and credit where it's due, at least Marvel, despite the fact that they have almost no competition, they're still making quality movies.
I think at this point it's because they don't care anymore. They're like, we'll still make money on this movie.
Dude, to me, DC always had the more the characters that I related to the most. But now we're getting off topic here.
So anyways, Ahmad, do you want to talk about Breaking Bad?
Well, we can talk about Breaking Bad. Why not?
Okay.
So over the summer, I didn't see the movie. I didn't see the TV show. People had told me about it, and I had heard about it before, but nobody told me. I mean, I just didn't think it was going to be good.
So you didn't think it was going to be good?
I didn't think it was going to be good, and I didn't like the concept. I didn't know
that's the funny thing, because I've always heard about this movie talked about in the context of it's like the greatest TV show of all
greatest
time.
TV show. I just never really thought it would be a show that would appeal to me.
Okay.
But over the summer, I was like, this is it. I'm gonna stop everything. I binged it within 2 weeks. So it was literally I would watch 10 episodes a day, about 10 episodes. Each episode is like an hour long. So yeah, it was rough.
Took some time.
Yeah, it took some time, but I got it done. I loved it. I couldn't stop watching it. As soon as I picked it up, I just couldn't stop watching it. Bryan Cranston does an amazing job. Aaron Paul, not just Bryan Cranston, but like his co-stars that are with him are amazing at what they do. And some of the last few episodes, Aaron Paul and the rest of the cast really shine. And throughout the this TV show, the characters are just the arcs of the characters are just amazing. Where it's set to is interesting. Albuquerque, which is an interesting place to have your TV show be set in, which I loved. I love the setting and location. I don't know. I don't want to get too in. I don't know because I know you guys haven't. I know you guys haven't seen
Aaron
it, so.
Paul. I think he's really an interesting actor.
Here's the thing. I
much
saw
of his stuff.
Yeah, I during the summer I also binge watched the Mission Impossible films, and he was actually in Mission Impossible 3.
It was
very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly.
briefly.
But this was after I had binged Breaking Bad.
Yeah, so Aaron Paul was in the Need for Speed.
Need for Speed.
That's
well.
the only thing I've ever seen him in. Was the Need for
also
Speed movie.
Central Intelligence. This is weird.
Yeah.
It's a movie?
Yeah, Central Intelligence. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson.
You know what? The other
Dwayne Johnson.
You know the other thing he was in that I just realized? He was in the Final Fantasy 15 Kingsglaive movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I haven't seen it, but I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, but he's a really good actor though. I mean, he won a Grammy for his performance.
Yeah,
especially in the final season.
A Grammy?
Is it a Grammy? An Emmy, sorry.
I was like,
he sung the intro song.
There's so many of these things that M and E that it's just confusing.
No, he made the music. He scored the music for this. No, he won an Emmy for it. His performance was amazing. Yeah, Bryan Cranston won multiple Emmys throughout the years.
I've always given it a thought, and I'm like, this just sounds too stressful.
It's on my watch list, but it's always one of those shows where I'm like, do I start Game of Thrones or do I start Breaking Bad?
Game of Thrones for me, I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm too far back that I can't watch it. I can't.
That's what I thought too, and I just started it because we get HBO Go free as students. Yeah. It's worth starting because the show it's not like you're 7 seasons behind, you can't catch up on it. Each kind of it's not really, even though it's broken up into seasons, that's not really how the storyline works. It's just kind of one continuous through line. Yeah. Think of it as like because season 8 coming up is going to be the last season. Yeah. Think of it as just like a 8-season long movie. Okay. It's just one long storyline.
It's a friggin' long movie. I
also heard that the how long are the episodes? Like each episode?
They're each about an hour.
An hour. Okay, so that's not that far off from Breaking Bad.
And they're not like 22 episode seasons. Mm-hmm. The first 6 are 10. Yeah. And then season 7 was 7 episodes, and season 8 is going to be 6 episodes.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to.
They just want to end the show.
I also don't have.
They're like, hey, can we stop making this now?
I also don't have HBO, and
as a student, you do. You get it free.
Really?
You get HBO Go free.
Wow. Oh yeah, we're students, by the way.
We're students, by the way. Yeah. I want to binge that show, and also I started Westworld, and I never finished it. Bryan Cranston he was in other multiple. I had only heard or seen him in Godzilla, the Godzilla movie. I did before I
Malcolm in the Middle?
Yeah.
And
Malcolm in the Middle, of course, yeah.
I saw him in one episode of Malcolm in the Middle, and he was also pretty good in Power Rangers.
Power Rangers?
Okay.
The new one? The new film?
Yeah.
He's Zordon.
My God. Well, I heard that. Here's the thing about that movie. I heard it was good.
I never saw it.
It's exactly what I wanted out of a Power Rangers movie.
That's exactly what I heard.
That's it wasn't a good movie.
Yeah.
But it was exactly what I wanted out of a Power Rangers movie.
To be fair, I know some people will hate me for saying this, Power Rangers itself wasn't exactly very good either.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So
the TV show,
the show itself.
But that's what I mean is the Power Rangers movie is the good version of Power Rangers, which isn't very good.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Assassin's Creed movie.
The Assassin's Creed movie wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always say that people should watch it, but it's a train wreck of a movie.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's not a good movie. But
what's his name? Michael Fassbender, like goes in that movie.
I always forget Michael Fassbender was in that movie, which is so
They
weird.
had a great cast because they also
yeah,
had
it's a terrific cast.
what's the Marion Cotillard and Die Hard 3, Alfred and Batman vs Superman.
I know exactly what you're talking about too.
I can't remember his name. Okay,
Yo, fact checkers on it.
Okay, yeah, Ahmad's on it here, but regardless,
yeah.
and this is
Video
way off
game
of Breaking Bad,
movies.
but
No, back to Breaking Bad. I had also seen him in Drive, which is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons.
Also, Brendan Gleeson, Michael K. Williams.
Yeah.
Like, this is great. It's a terrific cast.
we should just like splice this segment and put it back in like
Oh
3.
my gosh.
This episode is a train wreck.
It's a train wreck so far,
This is our best second episode.
best second episode. But I mean, we're experimenting with things.
Yeah.
And if you have anything,
I'm
sure you will.
So I do want to take this opportunity to put out to call out to all of our listeners. Please, in the YouTube comments, tell us something interesting about the format that you'd like to see change.
something you want us to
Because
improve on.
we won't necessarily change it, but I will eventually run out of ideas.
Yeah.
Ahmad, Sawyer, you will both run out of ideas at some point.
Yeah.
So and if there are ways that we can shorten this or maybe organize it better, let us know, because I will happily take suggestions.
Yeah.
I think all types of entertainment are better when it's more than just the creators who are involved in it. So please,
Especially with podcasts, you want your fan base involved.
yeah,
And I don't be too harsh, but like give us some criticism on that.
Yeah.
Like let us know if there's certain things that we should cut, if there's topics that run too long or that you don't like hearing about.
yeah.
Because I'm sure when we eventually get to Battlestar Galactica, if we do at all, I'm sure I might drag on that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so I think, yeah, I mean, just let us know, and
And share it with your friends and family too. We want listeners.
like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. But like, I hate
please.
to beat that drum, but like
I
at the
beg
same
you.
time, it's like we're not doing this just because we want to get big and famous. We just want to have viewers.
I mean, we're doing it because we want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can do it better, please.
We just
This
want to
is
give
a-
entertainment for people to enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So. Yeah. Breaking Bad. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Breaking
no,
Bad?
really good show. I don't want to get into spoilers, so I'm not
Okay.
gonna get into spoilers. Really good finale, but yeah, nothing else to say.
We're actually. I'm gonna say this. We're at an hour and a half, a little less than that on this recording.
Should
We're doing
we-
pretty good on time.
We're gonna cut up some of this.
We're doing pretty good on time compared to all of the other ones.
Yeah.
I'm going to skip Merlin because Merlin is Merlin. I could talk about King Arthur for ages. It's fine. Merlin's a good show. Go watch it. Battlestar Galactica.
Okay. So, Battlestar Galactica has two of my favorite series, both Metal Gear and Battlestar, in the same episode. Battlestar Galactica is my favorite television show of all time. Specifically the 2003-2004 reboot. Not the original 70s show. The 1978 TV show was very clearly just capitalizing on the success of Star Wars in 78. It
Was it Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars. It was
Okay.
very clearly a Star
Star
Wars.
Trek came before all of these.
Star Trek was
That's
in
true, yeah.
66, I believe.
66, yeah.
Man, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Anyways,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't wanna
Battlestar,
get us off
the
track.
departure between the reboot series and the original series is just staggering.
Yeah.
They are completely different shows. The only thing that really carried over is the very, very basic concept and the costumes.
Yeah.
They are completely different. Even the look of the Cylons, the
Yeah.
robot bad guys, is completely different.
Huh.
I personally have never watched the original 70s show. I want to at some point. I just never have. But the original show, like the remake of the show, it's amazing.
Yeah, I've heard really, really good things about it.
And one of the best things about it is it didn't overstay its welcome. They did. So it started off with a mini-series, which was 3 hours in total, on Sci-Fi Channel in 2003. A year later, in 2004, Season 1 aired. It aired for 4 seasons, not counting that mini-series, which the mini-series is canon. It's part of that. It's like essentially the 3-hour pilot of the show. And the show essentially, over the course of 4 seasons, introduced a lot of weighty ideas. Weighty is not even a word. heavy ideas and concepts.
I think it's a word.
Yeah, well, regardless, it introduced a lot of concepts you don't typically see on TV.
Yeah.
Intelligence, sentience, political struggles, the morality of war, religion. It pretty much anything you can think of, it did in this show. Unlike the '70s show, which was a wacky Star Wars ripoff, this one there's no aliens, there's none of that. It's essentially a military drama in space.
Okay.
Which may sound dumb, but it's not a science fiction show for sci-fi nerds.
Yeah.
It's a regular show, just in a sci-fi setting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the cast is also amazing
Yeah.
too.
So Battlestar is regarded as one of the greatest sci-fi / genre TV shows of all time. What I guess my curiosity with it is it hasn't gotten much else in the series.
Would you want to see?
Would you want to see more?
The story is wrapped up. Well, okay. The story itself.
I actually know how the story ends.
Okay.
So.
I don't want to spoil it for Ahmad though, in case you check it
Yeah,
out.
I want.
But because trust me, the ending is not something you want spoiled for yourself. I personally have a very love-hate relationship with the ending. Part of it I really like, and part of it just made me furious. I think it's very ballsy what they did. I thought it was fascinating because the ending of the show would have the potential to anger a lot of people, but is also a very interesting way, and it's very much on purpose the way they chose to end it that way. Don't worry, there's no cliffhanger ending. You don't have to worry about that. It's just one of their some of their choices. Now,
on that like final.
Yeah, I would say if they did something else if they did anything, it'd have to be a prequel. Like they also did tease that because on Machinima they aired a several part miniseries called Blood and Chrome. All the episodes added up to about an hour and a half, and it took place during. I know for those of you who haven't watched it, this won't make any sense, but it took place during the first Cylon War with the character William Adama, played by Eddie James Olmos in the main series.
Okay.
A younger version of him in the first Cylon War. I would not be opposed to seeing a television show based off of the first Cylon War with a young Adama. I think that could be really interesting. The Blood and Chrome mini thing they did in Machinima was you could tell it was essentially meant to be a pilot. It was an interesting start. I would have liked to have seen a TV series based off of that, but it never happened. Yeah. If we get anything in the reboot timeline, it'd have to be a prequel because the story is pretty heavily wrapped up at the end of the show. Yeah. You couldn't make a sequel to it.
What if they make a Battlestar Galactica film movie?
There actually have been rumors about that.
Would you be down for
that's
that?
That's right.
Yeah,
I forgot about
Brian
that.
Singer there's talk of Brian Singer remaking that, but that was also before all of the allegations against him.
Anytime Brian Singer comes up, I'm like, oh, well, never mind.
So there was talk about him doing it. I don't necessarily want this movie because I don't see how they could possibly beat what they already did. But, a new interpretation, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing. I just don't see how they could possibly top what they currently have.
Yeah. I think the thing that Battlestar represents is the death of things not being a franchise.
Yeah.
Because it's like its own thing, its own series. How long? It was 4 seasons long? 5?
So there was the miniseries and then 4 seasons.
Yeah, so miniseries and then 4 seasons. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the 70s show, but it doesn't really matter to that show, right?
It did go on. Well, the 70s show is completely separate.
Yeah.
So in terms of the chronology, there was the original 78 show, which only ran for 1 season. Then, which also the pilot of that show was a theatrically released movie.
Oh,
so
okay.
There was technically a movie, which was also the same, which they re-aired as a 2-part pilot on TV. So
all of which is a Star Wars ripoff.
Essentially, yeah. This show was very clearly made of the studio going, hey, we need something to compete with Star Wars because people like that.
Yeah.
So there was that, and then after Galactica 78, there was a show called Galactica 1980, which same timeline as 1978, most of the same characters. I've never watched it, so I can't judge completely. And then after that, I believe that was all we got of the original timeline, and then we got the miniseries, which kicked off the new timeline.
Okay.
And, other than the miniseries and the 4 seasons, there was the Blood and Chrome thing that I mentioned. There was also
weren't there comics?
I believe there were comics. I haven't read any of the supplemental material. There was a game for PS2 and Xbox that I've never played.
Bad idea.
Yeah, I don't know how you can make a video game based off of this. Except they did recently release I can't remember what kind. I think it was like an RTS or something for PC, which I heard was good. It's like Battlestar Deadlock.
I'm gonna tie this back to our VR conversation real quick. Star Trek VR.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Like, but with Battlestar.
Doesn't it already exist? Like Star Trek VR?
Well, yeah. So Star Trek VR is a thing, and I'm saying.
Oh, like
the way
a Battlestar
that you do
VR.
Battlestar is in VR.
Yeah. That would be interesting to see how they could pull it off. I could see like you know how Star Wars has X-wings.
Yeah.
They have Vipers in Battlestar. Like if they did like Viper combat in VR, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it'd just be I don't know how they necessarily do that because Battlestar is not focused on combat. There is certainly a lot of action in it, but combat is not the focus of the show.
I imagine Battlestar Galactica is on Battlestar Galactica. Like, it's on the ship Battlestar Galactica. Is that right? Is that a spoiler?
Spoilers. So I can't.
Okay.
But, yes.
How is that a spoiler?
Because...
How is the setting of the show a spoiler?
Okay, well, let's just say 95% of the show takes place on the Battlestar Galactica. Maybe more like 90%.
That's fine. Then that's fine. It's fine if you say 90%. That just means the rest of the show doesn't take place on Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, 90% of the show takes. I'm gonna even jump it down from 95. 90% of the show takes place on the Galactica.
Wow, that's a lot of. I mean, Star Trek spends a similar amount of time on the Enterprise, so it's not. I don't consider that a spoiler. I guess
the way the show like operates is a Battlestar is essentially like how what USS means in so it's essentially like an aircraft carrier.
Okay.
Galactica is the name of it. So like we have USS Obama or whatever, it's the Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
There are other Battlestars. You only really get to see one other one. That's not a spoiler because it's like very towards the beginning. You mentioned there were other Battlestars.
And then the rest of the show is the drama of the crew.
So essentially, the main basic premise for the show. And Mon, have you seen or heard anything about the show?
I've heard of the show. I've seen some like sort of spoofs of the show.
Yeah, like I know they referenced it on was it Community or The Office or something.
And then I've seen a Black Mirror episode which sort of alludes to the show. But yeah.
Well, the main basic concept for those of you at home, if you haven't heard of it, is there's 12 colonies of Cobalt. Cobalt is like in their myth during the world is where humans originally were created, and then eventually humans left to form 12 different colonies on 12 different planets.
Huh.
So humanity exists on these 12 separate planets, and they're not necessarily living in harmony because it very much mirrors our real world, but they exist on these 12 different planets. Eventually, and this takes place after there had already been a war with machines called Cylons. They're essentially robots, and but sentient to an extent robots.
Yeah.
And think of it essentially as just like a smarter Siri inside of essentially a toaster. They even joke about them being called toasters in the show. But I'm gonna tiptoe around spoilers here. But the show. So essentially, this also happens at the very beginning of the miniseries, so it's not a spoiler. The Cylons nuke every single one of the 12 colonies.
Whoa. That's intense.
Yeah. So the only humans that are left are the ones who are aboard the Galactica because the Galactica was being decommissioned as a Battlestar while the nukes were happening. So there's the Galactica and like a couple other civilian ships around it, and those were the only remaining humans. So the show is essentially about, and there's a speech that Adama gives about the mythical 13th colony of Cobalt known as Earth.
Yeah, and then
and that's the genesis of the show is them trying to find Earth as well as trying to keep humanity alive and keeping the Cylons away. That's really all I can say at the basic premise without giving away spoilers.
Knowing what the ending of Battlestar Galactica is, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Okay. Neat. I'll have to give it a watch.
The cast is great. Also, it is not a cheerful show. Don't go into this expecting to just have every episode be light and you're gonna feel good.
Happy, fun time, shoot robots.
Yeah, it is not a Star Wars style show. If you want a fun time show, go back and watch the original 1978 version. This show.
Or go watch Clone Wars instead.
Or watch Clone Wars.
Even
This show is
Clone
essentially.
Wars was,
well, Clone Wars got dark at times.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but it was mostly fun.
lighthearted, I guess.
this show is essentially like if you took, Star Trek Next Generation and just made it a little bit darker.
And then made it into Batman v Superman.
Essentially, yes. It's now keep in mind also the show was made on Sci-Fi Channel. Back before Sci-Fi Channel was the Sharknado station, and it was made in 2003 is when it started. So the CGI in it is not very good, but it's television CGI in the early 2000s. So you got to forgive the CGI.
Yeah.
But overall,
Also,
it's worth it.
Babylon 5. I've been watching that with my family.
Yeah.
Pretty quality space station
Is that on
drama.
Sci-Fi?
It's what
I've heard
Star
that
Trek
one,
Deep Space Nine ripped off.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
what it is.
I will say for Battlestar, even if you're not a science fiction fan, check the show out. It's not a happy show, but it's worth checking out. And just because there are 4 seasons, I should also preface this, does not mean that the show, did not air over the course of 4 years because the writer's strike happened during it, I believe.
Oh.
So there was like a break, and so like when they released the DVDs, there was 2 it's like seasons. Like if you're, I doubt most of you listening probably won't be picking up the DVDs, the Blu-rays, but they were released
It's
as
on
like
Netflix. Why would you?
it's not. It was on Netflix. It's not anymore.
Oh,
How am I gonna
man.
watch it?
I believe it's on Amazon Prime,
Oh, okay.
so you can check it out on Amazon Prime. But and I believe it's also on Hulu. I could be wrong about it. No, also I'm wrong about that. It is all on Prime. The miniseries is not on Hulu, but the main show is.
Oh, okay.
So you do have to watch. If you don't want to watch the miniseries, you really should because it's what kicks off the show. But,
So if I have all 3, what you're saying is I
Do it
should
on
just watch it on Prime.
yes, you should just watch it on Prime. That being said, Blood and Chrome is not on Prime.
Oh man.
And there were also 2 other movies released during the course of the show that are canon that exist. There's one called Razor, which took place they released it during the writer's strike to tie fans over between the release of seasons.
Okay.
It takes place during the course of season 2, but do not watch it during season 2 because the very end has spoilers or leads into season 4 and could ruin part of season 3.
So you should watch it after season 3?
Watch everything in release order. Don't do anything out of release order.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I forget
okay
I forget the exact point of when it came out, but do not watch Razor before it came out. Like in timeline wise. Like watch the show up until the release of Razor and then watch Razor. It's not available on Prime, but it's like $2 to rent on Prime. It's definitely worth checking out, especially for what it sets up. And then there was also a movie called The Plan, which Eddie James Olmos actually, I believe, directed it. He did.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, okay. Well, I believe he directed it, and it's passable. It takes place. It came out after the show had already ended.
Oh, okay.
It is the. Oh, I won't say why only the first 2 seasons, but it takes place over the course of the first 2 seasons, but from the Cylons' perspective.
Oh, okay.
So you get to see what they were doing during the course of the show. It's interesting.
neat
It's really
idea.
just fan service. If you finished already the show and you want more Battlestar, go to the movie The Plan.
Which
But
people who love Battlestar will say
Do
they
that.
will want more Battlestar.
Yes. But if you finish the series and you're like, I want to move on to another show, pass on The Plan. It's not necessary. Other than the mini, so if you just wanted the very basic amount of Battlestar, like your basic amount of homework, miniseries, the show, and then Razor. I can't remember when it came out. I think it was 2007. Razor during the 2007 era. That's like your basic amount. If you want to add in the other movies, do The Plan after you finished the show. Don't watch it after season 2, despite the fact that it says it takes place during seasons 1 and 2, because it will spoil the entire show. So do not watch The Plan based on when it takes place, or it will ruin the show. Trust me. And the Blood and Chrome thing, if you don't like the show, there is no reason to watch Blood and Chrome. It's essentially fan service. If you didn't like the show, don't watch Blood and Chrome.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I rave about this show. Check it out on Prime. It's worth it.
Or Hulu. If you
Or
happen to
Hulu,
have
but if you
is the miniseries
or Hulu, but if you
is the miniseries required reading for the show?
it most definitely is.
Okay.
Because the miniseries is essentially the pilot. It's where the whole nuking of the colonies happens. It's where you get introduced to the characters.
Okay. See, I'm just trying to think about our listeners who maybe don't have Prime but have Hulu.
If you only have Hulu and you don't have Amazon Prime, if you only have the ability to, if you don't have the ability to watch it all and you don't want to rent it on Amazon Prime because you don't necessarily have to have Prime to watch it, just look up a Wikipedia description of it.
Okay.
Because it is essentially the 3-hour pilot for the show. I will say, I tried to watch this show numerous times. The miniseries, I'm not gonna lie, is quite boring. It's the miniseries itself.
Wait, the miniseries, like the original Battlestar miniseries?
No, like the 2003 one that led into the remake of the show. Because that's none of the 78 stuff. Just the 2003 miniseries that was essentially a pilot for the show.
Okay.
It's a little boring. It drags at times, but if you don't watch it, you're gonna have no idea what's going on. So
good to know.
It's worth it. And I would just say if you're gonna start watching Battlestar, do the miniseries in 2 90-minute segments because it was aired over the course of 2 nights rather than the 3-hour movie. But it's, I believe, on Prime. I could be wrong, but it might be in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Watch it in 90-minute segments. It'll make it easier to digest.
Okay.
Well,
yeah. Like
good
just
advice.
maybe split it across 2 nights. Don't watch all 3 hours at once, or you will, like I did, or you will not want to watch the show afterwards.
Yeah.
You want to split that up.
Yeah.
And trust me, by the time you get to like the 3rd episode of the main season 1,
you'll be hooked.
You're gonna be hooked.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Is the first season is very addictive.
The first season is the best season of the show.
Oh, okay.
But don't let that get you down to say, oh well, the rest of the series isn't as good. Oh, it's great. It's just the first season is so concise and tells kind of its own story. Seasons 2, 3, and 4 kind of all have one large story.
Oh, okay.
They all kind of piggyback off of each other.
That
Season 1 is very contained, as long as you've seen the miniseries. Yeah.
Man, Ahmad, you know what? Star Trek: The Next Generation was a great show.
Was it really?
Oh man, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that show next week. I promise.
But
Stay tuned.
If any of you guys decide to watch it, let me know. It's on Prime.
Yeah, we'll
it's
do.
Definitely worth checking out.
If Ahmad and I both watch it,
Yeah.
we'll definitely dedicate
gonna watch
an entire podcast to Battlestar.
Do you guys both have Prime?
Yeah,
I have Prime.
I have Prime right now. I don't know. I might cancel it when I stop using it.
No, well, do Battlestar first. Before
I think honestly keeping Prime would be worth it because they have a lot of really good movies now on Prime Video that you'd be surprised. But yeah, I'm gonna check it out for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Just make sure you don't end up watching the 1978 version on accident.
I mean, you could tell. You would know. You would know if you.
Yeah, I would probably be able to.
I might
spot
just do
that
it just.
pretty quickly.
I might do it just for fun, just to see where things were at back then.
It is
Oh,
such
man,
a dated show.
You know what? I think it's a good idea for us to do. Our watch thing is gonna be the 1970s Battlestar.
Okay, I'd be down
like
for
the movie that they launched it. Because the pilot for the show was a movie released in theaters. We do that. That'll be our first movie commentary.
Yeah.
Whenever that happens.
Yeah, it'll be
commentary.
Hopefully it'll happen soon. But yeah.
All right. Well,
Cool.
that's the second episode of the Cate-Cast. It was kind of chaotic this week.
Yeah, really chaotic. Yeah.
Not every week will be like this.
I was planning
we're
on
going
talking
through it.
about Merlin. I'll talk about it next week or something, or maybe I'll talk about Star Trek like I just promised.
There's always time for Star Trek.
Who knows what next week is? I want to just put out a little disclaimer before we do the introductions, which is not a word according to Word, so
According to words, it's not a word.
Yeah, exactly.
Introduction.
I do want to say that we are all genre people. I mean, Ahmad, you are a film guy.
Yeah, I'm
and
more of a film.
I mean, we're all film majors, so
And
to some degree we have.
And some of the movies I've been talking about
Yeah.
lately are more things that I've seen recently, or
Yeah.
maybe things that trailers. So
Yeah.
I mean, I could go more in depth with it.
But when we say Cate-Cast an entertainment podcast, we do mean the entertainment part.
Yeah.
So if we do talk a lot about superheroes and Star Wars and stuff like that, I just want to say don't come here necessarily looking for the indie hit,
art house,
like art house indie hits.
I mean, yeah.
Even though maybe you will find some of that here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're like barred from talking about those things.
This is mostly mainstream sort of.
But our areas of interest align with what is in the quote-unquote mainstream to some degree.
To an extent.
I think that's something that I'm going to point out is that if people get frustrated by the fact that we keep coming back to pop culture, we are very studied in pop culture.
Yes.
So it's something that...
I would always rather check out a Star Wars movie than the latest Sundance film,
Exactly.
which I know must be like blasphemy to somebody.
Yeah.
But,
For me, I do both. For me, I'm really interested
Yeah.
in indie films, but I'm not.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of the same way with me in indie games.
Yeah.
Like, if an indie game interests me, I'm not going to turn it away because it's an indie game.
Yeah.
So, like...
Same for me with indie, even though I'm kind of joking about the Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
But like, if an indie film looks good to me and it has an interesting story,
Yeah.
I'll for sure check it out. I am more well-versed in... I think all three of us are more well-versed in...
genre.
Popular science fiction and fantasy and action films, rather than your latest drama or romantic comedy.
Which if you are more studied in genre and romantic comedy, reach out to us.
Yeah, maybe you can be a guest on the show.
If you can come be a guest on the show without too much of a cost, please come and talk about those things, because I'm super interested in talking about all sorts of things on this
And
podcast.
if you have any ideas for any other additional shows on our channel, put it in the comments or tweet at us.
Yeah, maybe all of us can spin out and do our own shows or something like
Yeah, like we could do, I don't know, a couple of ideas we've been throwing around are movie commentaries or I know gameplays, something like that. There's always ideas.
Yeah, and I mean, right now we're going to focus on the Cate-Cast.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think we're going to give this a month or two, make sure we get this down, make it our weekly thing before we become a whole network.
Yeah,
of,
that most likely will not
of-
happen until at least 2019.
Yeah, at least.
At least.
I'm not even confident it'll happen in
After
2019.
Post Avengers 4.
Post Avengers 4, yes. Oh, by the way.
That's our timeline. It's pre and post Avengers 4.
By the way, I'm just going to point this out right now. We are doing an Avengers 4 spoiler cast.
Well, you've got about 6 months till it
happen.
happens. But...
It's going to happen.
We could also, whenever the trailer drops, also.
This is a promise.
Nice.
We'll talk about the Avengers 4 trailer when it drops.
Well, and
I
this
will
will
bring
be
that to the show.
literally more than almost a year away. But when episode 9 drops, you can believe there's going to be an episode about that.
So we've got stuff to talk about, but a lot of it is going to be in like the genre pop culture scene.
And
so that's something that I just wanted to point out.
Just because I feel like that would appeal to most.
It appeals to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it appeals to us.
But like I want to talk about superheroes in Star Wars.
Yep.
Like those are like the kinds of things that I like to talk about.
And things that you know the most about.
Yeah, and I don't have an issue with talking about Nick Cage movies. That's not it. I don't have a problem with that. It's
love
just
Nick
not
Cage.
like
just really close to the mic.
I love Nick Cage.
we love you, Nick Cage.
Just some ASMR action going.
So yeah, I guess that's just a disclaimer I wanted to point out. If it drives you away for some reason, that's your choice. But
And don't expect this to be a movie news or like video game news station either, because we're not going to be, oh, well, the latest set photos of this drop. We may talk about a new trailer or maybe about a new photo of a costume or whatever, but it's not going to be just a weekly movie news dump show. As we just demonstrated with Battlestar, we'll talk about something from...
Yeah, and I spent how long talking about Fire Emblem? Like,
Long.
there's like...
Last week we talked about GoldenEye, which is a 20, almost 30-year-old game.
So I mean, I was prepared to bring Merlin onto the show. Like, who cares about Merlin?
No,
right?
So we're gonna bring things that people forgot about, or
we'll bring all sorts of things. Things that like we want to talk about.
This show is essentially 3 guys talking about stuff they like. Don't expect it to be anything more than that.
But thanks for listening.
Check us out on Twitter.
I do think reach out for us if you have an idea. Please give it to us. If you have an idea for a topic, give it to us, because I think maybe incorporating like a listener topic once a week or something like that might be interesting, or all sorts of things that we could do. Sawyer, do you have the Cate-Cast Twitter page?
Yes. So our Twitter,
memorized?
due to like the weird Twitter algorithm, it flipped it. So instead of @Cate-Cast, it's @CastCata. So CASTCATE.
That is a great PSN username right there.
Cast
That like
Cabin.
we really want to change, but we can't change it.
Yeah. So follow us on there. Every time that we upload a video to YouTube, it'll automatically notify you, and you'll get a tweet about it.
Obligatory like and subscribe, I guess. I don't want to push that too hard, but it does help with visibility.
Yeah.
So
We want to entertain everybody who likes films
more
and television
importantly,
and games.
anything, advise us, tell us what we're doing wrong, right?
And I know that we keep running long, but you know what? We're gonna keep running long, and that's gonna be okay. Yeah, there you go.
Go check out the stuff we talk about. If you want more information, go Google it. Don't wait for us to tell you about
Battlestar
it.
Galactica. I'm gonna have to check.
Start
that
watching it, or
Yeah.
go pre-order a Oculus Quest if you have the money.
Yeah.
Or pre-order Fire Emblem Three Houses. Just saying.
Yeah, pre-order everything. No, don't do that. Don't give me money.
that's
don't do that. Don't do that.
That's actually a really, really bad idea. Don't
listen to me.
pre-order everything. Only pre-order things the day before they come out.
Yeah, only pre-order things if they've already gone gold. Don't
Yeah.
pre-order a thing which gone gold. No, that's a whole other
Yeah.
thing. Only pre-order things if
my
you know
God.
they're absolutely
I am
happening.
so prepared to talk about Mighty Number 9 right now,
Oh
but
my
I'm not
God.
going to.
Yeah,
It's
we're
okay.
already at
we're
2
gonna-
hours. We're at
so,
2 hours.
yeah,
So,
we just
So that's our second episode. Again,
mess.
surprise. Yeah, it's kind of a mess of an episode. You know what? With the magic of editing, it'll all be fine.
Yep, and we'll even cut this part out too.
Probably already gonna cut before this anyway.
Yeah.
so-
Yep. So we doesn't really just.
Well, you have to do the outro.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
do
well,
the-
we can cut this part.
Yeah, we'll cut.
We'll cut.
Let's
We'll
cut all the parts.
everything.
Let's cut all the parts.
Literally all of that.
Yeah.
So that's the second episode. Again, I'm surprised we got this far. I'm looking forward to doing this for the rest of my life with you guys.
Yep.
We're sitting in a nursing home,
Yeah.
wearing our Oculus VR headsets. Yeah.
Oh, did you hear about the one time that
Avengers 45 is coming out. Yeah. Captain Marvel recast as Brie Larson Jr. is playing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I'm Ezra, and again I'm with,
Ahmad.
And Sawyer.
and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.